Following Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the subsequent truckload of sanctions imposed on the country by the US and its Western allies, development of an alternative global financial order has gathered steam. To understand how we got here, we need to turn back the clock. It was the summer of 1944. The sun shone brightly on a quaint and small town nestled in the serene mountains of New Hampshire. History was about to unfold within the walls of the Mount Washington Hotel. Here, 730 delegates from 44 nations had gathered for a monumentous event known as the United Nations Monetary and Financial Conference. If that name doesn't ring a bell, it's because everyone calls it the Bretton Woods Conference after the town it was held in. Although World War II was still a year away from the official end date, it was clear to everyone that Germany was on the verge of losing. Allied countries were now preparing for peace, and the depressions and hardships many countries had gone through not too long ago were evidence that the world needed a new monetary order. The most renowned economist of the day, John Maynard Keynes, a British guy, and his American counterpart, Harry Dexter White, were in attendance. The system they dreamt up during the 3 weeks they camped at Bretton Woods would go on to shape the entire world for decades to come. The main objectives of the conference was, number 1, to create a new international monetary system that would ensure stability of exchange rates and provide financial assistance to member countries, and 2, to provide loans and financial support for the reconstruction and development of war-torn countries. At the end of the conference, the US dollar was picked as the primary global reserve currency. That system, agreed upon in 1944, has been responsible for the untold prosperity that the world has witnessed since the Second World War. International trade skyrocketed. Countries lifted themselves from poverty. Technology progressed beyond our wildest dreams, buoyed by an international market and a stable international monetary reward system. While not perfect, exchange rates across the world did stabilize, and businesses could conduct trans-border and international trade without fear of huge and sudden forex losses. As all of this was happening, one country was reaping, and continues to reap the most benefits: the United States of America. By being able to control the flow of the dollar, the very fabric of international trade, the US has exercised untold influence over all countries on Earth. They can withhold their currency to uncooperative countries. They can sanction a country's exports because, let's face it, no one is buying oil with Iranian rial. Most international loans are denominated in the dollar, driving more demand for the same. Oligarchs and corrupt officials around the world hide their loot in dollars, making it easy prey whenever Uncle Sam is unhappy with them. In short, the US has the tools to launch financial warfare against individuals, corporations, and entire countries at a scale never seen before in human history. It's one thing to have the tools, but it's another to actually use them. And boy, has the US made use of them. As proof of how effective this financial and economic warfare has been, you just need to look at the countries on the receiving end: Iran, Syria, North Korea, Venezuela, Cuba, Zimbabwe, and Sudan, all basket cases. Many countries now believe that this status quo cannot be allowed to continue. The events in Ukraine in 2022 and the subsequent sanctioning of Russia, a much larger country compared to the other unlucky ones, have renewed the conversation around a new global financial order. And unlike any other time since 1945, this time the ground is fertile. China, the chief architect of this plan, is a capable adversary. Take a look at this map. It's a representation of every country's biggest trading partner. Blue is the United States, and of course, red is China. Now, here's an animation showing how China's fortune has changed since 1980. Today, China is the largest trading partner to more than 120 countries. That's over 60% of the world. And not just that. In most countries where the US or another nation is top, China sits comfortably in second place. It's no exaggeration to say that China has unwittingly made the US dollar even more important globally, owing to the fact that it trades with all these nations primarily using the dollar. Xi Jinping believes it's now time to cut out the middleman and bring the great United States back to earth. But will he succeed? Probably yes, but what's unclear is the timescale. No one expects any currency to pose a serious challenge to the dollar this decade. Certainly not the Chinese Yuan. The problem with the yuan, which may hinder its ascendance as an alternative reserve currency, is the Chinese government's strict controls. Capital controls, exchange rate controls, and other restrictive government measures do not inspire confidence in investors. No one will hold 1 billion yuan if the state can wake up one morning and halt all transfers outside the country. So why can't China just free the yuan to join the League of Liberalized Currencies? Well, they tried that with disastrous results. In the 2010s, the CCP started easing their foreign outflow quotas, and the exodus that followed was biblical. It was quite literally a stampede. In 2015 alone, $1 trillion worth of capital left the country. If this was allowed to continue, foreign reserves would have dropped to unsustainable levels, spelling disaster for the country. The CCP found itself in quite a pickle. On one hand, they wanted the yuan to join the League of Reserve Currencies, namely the dollar, the euro, the British pound, and the Japanese yen. On the other hand, they couldn't burn their economy while doing so. Eventually, China chose to aggressively crack down on capital outflows. Today, the Chinese yuan, officially called the renminbi, makes up only 2.7% of the foreign exchange reserves. The US dollar counts for 58.4%. It will be a long journey if the yuan has any chance of holding any sizable share. That's where the proposed BRICS currency comes in. It comes with the might of the biggest emerging economies on the planet, but without the baggage of the Chinese capital controls. But make no mistake, the fact that we're hearing about it for years without anything tangible shows just how complicated it will be to implement. There are so many practical reasons that remain unanswered. For instance, will it be backed by hard assets like gold or oil as proposed? Hint, unlikely. Will it be backed by the currencies of the BRICS member states? Will there be physical banknotes or coins in member states? We'll get into more details about the complexities in a future video. Some point to the successful launch of the euro in 1999 as proof that it is in fact possible, but the dynamics are like night and day. For starters, the euro took a decade of preparations. The countries involved share borders with each other, and so on and so forth. Even then, the euro was initially only used for accounting purposes and electronic payments, before the physical banknotes were eventually rolled out. The BRICS currency will be very interesting to watch. And just to put it out there, whether it's the dominant currency or not, the US dollar will have its place in the world for many decades to come. But it's pretty clear that the time for the dollar hegemony is running out. Tell us what you think.